Now then everybody, this is the Wedding Mavericks podcast, a podcast for wedding photographers and videographers who want to build successful and sustainable businesses. My name is Jules and I'm joined by Lyndsey, and on this episode we're going to be discussing goals for your business in 2023.
So, last year, at this exact time, we're flipping the numbers. We're on episode 51 today, but to go back to this time last year, we were on episode 15.
Look at
that.
I didn't even realise that.
Look at that.
That's funny.
So, you join us at a time where we are going to kind of reflect back on last year's goals that we started to talk about in that episode. And if you haven't already listened to that, please go back through the catalogue and have a look for that. And because we go into quite some detail about the importance of setting goals and giving you a little bit of advice on a format and a structure that you could follow when it comes to setting goals for your business. And as we are 12 months down the line, we're into the start of another new year. We wanted to look back at those, give you a little bit of an idea of how we did in performing against the goals and achieving or not achieving the goals that we set last year. Look at a little bit why that could have been or might not have been. And the fact that we're here at the start of a new year, as we say, and we want to do that once more. We want to set some new goals for the year ahead. So we're not going to kind of repeat ourselves from that episode from last year in so much as going into lots and lots of depth about kind of the sort of theoretical approach, you know, how things are kind of brought from the business world, approach, the educational sort of environment and put into this. But really, we're still going to use something called SMART goals, SMART goal setting, because we feel that that's something that works for us. And for those of you who will already be familiar with that, perhaps there's some of you that are listening that are new to us that haven't heard that previous episode or just are not sure what it is that I'm referring to, the SMART goal setting is a mnemonic that's used to kind of break down a process of how you would set a goal, monitor that, and then kind of sort of get to a point where you're setting yourself a bit of a time parameter in which to sort of achieve that goal. So goals themselves are targets. I see them as
Targets. Hit the target.
So, and again, I think we talked about this sort of last year. You know, see it as nothing more complex than that, really. You might want to call it goals, you might want to call it objectives, you might want to call it targets. But ultimately, this is something that you and your business are going to be aiming for.
Yeah.
And for us, the way in which we go about trying to achieve our goals or kind of brainstorm them, get them down on paper in the first place, as I've said, is to use this approach called the SMART model.
Well, we do and we don't. So just to be clear, we do just chat. That's the thing. We want you to understand that what you really need to do is have a think about what you want to achieve this year. So it could be in your business, it could be elsewhere in your life, but that's it, isn't it? That's how simple it is.
Absolutely.
And the whole thing that Lyndsey's going through with the action plans is just about making sure you've got a strategy to get there and something to hold you accountable.
Yeah, but absolutely right, yeah.
Sorry.
You just, no, that word just, it's okay, that's quite all right. That word just popped into my mind just before you said it. Absolutely, yeah. The reason that we've chosen to use SMART action plan or SMART goals, if you like, previously was because exactly that. Because, you know, you might be in a position at the moment where you are thinking about the year ahead. You might be thinking, are there things that you want to be able to achieve in your business or other areas of your life that might cross over into your work, into your business? And if you have, how are you going to be able to keep tabs on those, basically? How are you going to keep yourself motivated to make sure that you are always trying to kind of move forward and progress to make sure that you're achieving those goals? And for those of you that, well, it's going to be an awful lot of us, isn't it, that are either self-employed single business owners, so you are it, basically, all those hats that we've talked about previously, you're the person that's operating your business, or you might be fortunate enough to work with one, perhaps two other people. But ultimately, you know, who's keeping note of that accountability? Who's spurring you on? How is it that you're going to get to achieve those goals? Okay, so for us, that SMART action plan model, so the S stands for something that's specific, and we will talk through some of what our specific goals were last year. We'll also share with you what some of the new specific goals are for 2023 going ahead. The M in that model is about something being measurable. So when you're setting yourself a target, you need to have in mind how you're going to be able to track it or measure it, because you're going to have a starting point. That starting point could be 0. And let's say it's something that's financially driven, for example. Well, then in order to measure it,
$1 million.
exactly, you're going to need to keep track of, keep monitoring how close you are to the $1 million. A is something that is achievable. Okay, so there has to be a degree of realism about this. When you're setting yourself goals for the year ahead, please just bear in mind, and you're going to hear us talk about this, the kind of realism and the achievability of the goals that you set. You know, 1 million might be something that's actually quite realistic for you to achieve in revenue next year, but if you said 10 million, you know, what on earth were you basing that on?
$1 million? You want like the average wedding photographer,
No,
videographer?
I was using your hypothetical 1 million. But
wow.
yeah. But you know, yes, it has to be something that's really quite well considered on your part, and you need to think, yes, this is something that it's going to be a lot of hard work. I'm going to need to do X, Y, and Z, but I really feel like it's something that's achievable. Okay, and then the R that we get to, something that's relevant. In some places you will see the R down as relevant. You could see it in some places as realistic. Okay, we've gone for thinking of it as being relevant to us, because if it's not relevant to you and your business, why on earth might you be doing it? Okay, I think what we certainly love to do is to listen to such a variety of sort of learning material, whether it's through podcasts, whether it's through watching things on YouTube, whether it's reading things online, such a lot of different resources that are available. But we don't restrict ourselves to simply absorbing information from other wedding videographers and photographers. We're looking at quite a breadth of kind of knowledge and experience, from business to well-being to the technical aspect of camera operation, lighting, you name it, quite a breadth of different things. Well, if we were to set ourselves a target that was to do with a complete, you know, something that we've seen on a YouTube video, and it's to do with someone that reviews tech, well, what on earth has that got to do with our business? It sounds like a great goal, that, and that might be something that's really fun to try and invest achieving this year. But how does that take our business forward? What on earth has that got to do with us? So make sure, please, when you're thinking about what your goals are, make sure that it's relevant to you personally and your business.
Yeah, you what you're doing by, you know, you could just say, well, why do I even need to answer that question, because I wouldn't come up with that. Why even make that something that I want to, you know, why even use that as a goal? You know, if I already know it's not relevant to me. But what it is it's about, why is it relevant? So what is it going to achieve? But if you do this, what does it bring? Hence why it's relevant, because it will, if I do X, it will help me with Y and Z. That's why it's relevant.
Yeah. And then the final aspect to the SMART action plans then is that something should be time bound. There should be some kind of time target to it that surrounds it. So last year we talked about short, medium, long-term goals. And that's certainly something that should influence how you view the targets or the goals that you're going to set yourself for the year ahead. You know, there will always be decisions that you make which lead into, I guess, the targets that you might have set, but not all of them are going to be 12 months long. It's not necessary for them all to be 12 months long. Okay, there could be a short term.
Some might be 10 years long.
Okay, absolutely,
But,
yeah.
you know, there could be a couple of months, weeks.
Absolutely.
Could even be days. You could set yourself goals, mini goals throughout the time. You know, we all have a to-do list or things that we're like, I need to get this done today, or I need to get this done this week. You know, they are goals in itself, and they require some kind of plan of how you're going to get from there to there. Some stuff, you know, like washing the dishes isn't going to take a lot of planning. You just need to wash the dishes. But there might be other things where you can't actually get on and achieve that goal and complete that task without doing some preparatory work, or, you know, thinking about making sure this is done first before that, because you won't have a good shot at achieving the goal if you haven't done that. So that's why, you know, we have these different time frames, because sometimes, you know, we can get something done today and it's done. Sometimes something might take weeks or months or years.
Yeah.
So we have to give ourselves a good crack, but also give ourselves a target to hit.
Yeah. It's like you saying, I know you'll go through this. Some goals or targets for your business will just be ongoing. You know, our whole ethos behind this is creating a business that can be successful for you, but that it's sustainable. And in sustainable, we're not talking at it from the environmentally friendly perspective. We're talking about it, you being in it for the long term. You be having a longer term successful business. And so some goals that you might that you might decide upon, they'll be continuous.
Absolutely, and sustainability, a sustainable goal is actually means that you probably have to adjust, you know, adapt, reassess. You know, what might be a goal at some point, the goal might change completely, or you might have to change elements of your plan to get to that goal, because things change. You know, like we could say, I don't really want to have to do social media. You know, if you were a photographer or videographer 10 years ago, social media, you didn't need to do social media, right? If you don't do social media now, it's probably going to be difficult for you. So, you know, I'm not saying that's not a carte blanche thing, but generally, we would all accept that social media is a big part of running a small business now. So if we were to just say, I'm not going to learn that, I'm not going to adapt to that, I'm just going to keep putting articles in the newspaper, I'm going to keep putting stuff in the magazine, and that's how I'm going to get jobs, well, you've probably gone out of business by now. So that's an example of how the goal hasn't changed. You're still trying to get clients, you're still trying to shoot weddings, but how you get to that goal's changed. So you can reassess things. Okay, Lindsay Ann.
Really my middle name.
Really my name. I might call you some of the other names I call you in another one. No, not like, you know, nice names.
Oh, gosh.
Right, so we're going to rewind back to this time last year, flip the numbers from episode 51 to 15, and we were talking about things, but we're not obviously going to go back through that episode. We're just going to, we were looking for these, and these are our action plans that we wrote down on bits of paper that we titled Smart Action Plan and everything. So we have these goals that we'd set, and I think that we made sure that we did 5, and we didn't want to give ourselves reams of stuff to do. There are always things that we're always trying to do, like you are trying to get customers, clients, you are trying to, you know, keep your business moving in the right direction by doing different things all the time. These were like 5 specific things that we wanted to work on. And everybody, you know, yourself, so you might be thinking right now, the reason for doing this podcast is because we want to be encouraging you to think about what you're trying to achieve going forwards. What are your goals going to be? So, you know, whilst you're listening to us talk about these and whether they were successful, whether we achieved them, whether we've still got them, whether we changed them or whatever. Think about the stuff that you might set. And it might be that you haven't got as many jobs as you'd like. You might not have as many inquiries as you'd like. So how are you going to change that? It might be to do with money. It might be to do with a particular technical skill or knowledge. And that's, that's what so we're going to demonstrate what we talked about last year, and hopefully that'll give you an insight and help give you some ideas as to what you can do to keep moving your business forward and improving. So the first one was to improve processes and workflows. And basically, we won't read the whole thing. There's quite a few like bullet points. We kind of did them as bullet points to try and be succinct, something that we would be able to read back and understand, but not necessarily explain everything in detail, because we know kind of what we're thinking when we've made these, but we don't need to necessarily explain them on paper to somebody. But if someone was to ask us, or we were to ask ourselves, what did that mean, we would understand. So essentially, we wanted to be able to make sure the processes and workflows were as good as possible. But Lyndsey, I think, must have written this one because she wanted to develop her knowledge and understanding of transferring and securing files and data before, during and after editing. So
that was like a little add-on.
That was like a little specific
personal one for me,
Yeah, which is good because, to provide some context there, I probably do the majority of the editing and I do a lot of the file transfer. So whenever we've done a wedding, I'm usually the one who downloads all the files from the memory cards, stores them, gets them organised and stores them on the computers and hard drives, and then I back them up, make sure we've got copies, and then I do a lot of the processing. So like if Lyndsey's going to do some editing, I will usually have had that set up for you. But you at that time wanted to understand how to do that, and that was something we talked about, because just in case for whatever reason I couldn't do it or something happened to me, that she'd know how to do those things. So what do you think? Do you feel like you got... We did kind of look at that a couple of times, didn't we? Like we went through the whole thing together, but I think probably you need to be... I know for myself, I'd need to be doing that regularly.
Yeah, every single time. Did it a few times, I will say, when time allowed.
Yeah.
And I think the further that we got into wedding season, the busier that we got.
The less time.
The less time, and I think when you that combined with when you kind of, we had a number of weekends where we'd have multiple weddings on, and so in order for it just to be done in order to be able to kind of default to this is how it's done, for your peace of mind, I need to know that it's done correctly, it's done efficiently, and I've followed the same steps and the same process that I always have. Because once I've done that, I then need to format the cards, I need to make sure the batteries are charged, because we go again in the morning.
Yeah.
So that, and then I would say probably a combination of, we get into the summer, and my kind of default naturally is to kind of get more involved with the kids and sort of be looking to meet their needs when they're around. You have summer holidays and things like that, and I think definitely in the last sort of 6 months, that anyway, the kind of aspirations for, I think, just not just that particular aspect, but generally achieving kind of more time and process efficient practices has gone out the window. And I play little or no part in that, or haven't for the past sort of 6 months.
Okay, well, you'd have to berate yourself.
Oh no. 'Cause that's I think that's just being realistic about it, because we've kind of we've sort of, I would say the first half of the year, I was far more active in trying to work towards achieving that. And then, as I said, that, because that was like a little add-on for me personally, but there was this overarching thing that was to do with right through the business, from transferring the files and the security of those was one thing, but everything from like the client communications, the workflows that we have, it was something that was kind of business wide. So really, that was a huge goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably too big. probably too big, too wide, and we'll kind of we'll keep coming back to that about how, from our experience of setting goals in our business over the last few years, we always either we're a bit optimistic maybe sometimes, which is a good thing, but sometimes it leaves you feeling like you've not achieved what you wanted to achieve, or it does. I know I feel like that a lot.
Yeah.
Because I have like this optimistic view that I can get this done in this amount of time, and then it's maybe a bit unrealistic because I could do. It's a bit like when I say to you, I can get there in 10 minutes. Right? Well, I know I can get there in 10 minutes in the car
Anywhere.
if I drive at the speed I want to drive and there's no traffic on the road. But that's unrealistic because it doesn't happen like that, does it? So, yeah, it's a bit like that in that you have an idea of how long it'll take to do something. It always takes you longer. Things always crop up, get in the way. It doesn't go how you wanted it to. It's not smooth. And so therefore, what I'm learning over time is to, not be as optimistic about that and factor in more time for stuff, and things will always be a little bit more difficult than I want them to be. This, I think, this general improvement process and workflow. So we put a lot of points down. You've basically, it's all to do with like email templates, setting up the CRM in, workflows. Basically, workflows to do with everything from like before the wedding, so like communication with clients and getting information and being prepared, then shooting the wedding, how we can make efficiencies there, post-production, editing, delivering a wedding to somebody, how we can make efficiencies there. So improving those processes and workflows is huge. That's like a huge, we probably need to break that down, be very specific about what we want to change and how we're going to change it.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Because I was going to say, I think that there are other things that have that we have realised have come into play that are now even more additions to this workflow. So creating somebody's wedding film or putting their photograph gallery together, that's not all you have to do now. When you're delivering to a client, that's not what the expectation is anymore. That has kind of come on because people's expectations have adjusted according to the social, the appetite for sharing on social. And so now what needs to be built into your workflow for what was once simply editing and delivering to a client is what you then need to do with that asset once it's been completed. And we were only talking about this yesterday, but it's become apparent that, there's this desire there to have things social ready. There's a client at the moment whose wedding was just 3 weeks ago who has contacted us to ask for, is this particular, not the wedding film necessarily, but is there a social ready short film ready for me to post yet? And
that wasn't something that was never promised and it wasn't purchased. It isn't part of what the contract that we've got with this person, but there is this expectation. And the thing is as well, if people are seeing something elsewhere, they kind of that soon becomes the expectation or the standard, doesn't it? Now, for me, if you're delivering an extra edit, I think that should be something you factoring into your price somewhere. You're charging for it in some way, whether it's built into the price or whether it's an additional thing that they're going to purchase. But it's probably becoming a bit expected now.
Yeah. So I think generally to just kind of revert that particular goal for us, looking back on the year now, that was extremely broad for us. But in kind of reflecting on that over the past few months and kind of periodically, what we have picked up on is the fact that an improvement to your processes and your workflows, well, to be able to do that, we have to understand that seems to be something that is actually evolving
all the time.
All the time, yeah.
So we'd put down, that we wanted to have that complete by the 31st of March last year.
Yeah.
So I think that was because we were like, right, it starts getting busier April onwards. You know, there isn't as many weddings and as much work on in the first couple, 2 or 3 months of the year. So we've got time to do all this stuff then. And I think, you know, we wanted it done. But the problem is that actually we did make some adjustments, we did make some changes, but they just weren't, it's not a definitive.
No.
You have to keep adjusting and adapting to that. And this is something that I'm always massively going on about, how, you know, because you'll say, well, what's wrong with this email template? And I'll say, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but I just feel like it could be better.
Yeah.
And that's just my nature. I'm always looking for just a little, you know, marginal thing that will make it better. And, you know, you change and adjust things based on how you know, results that you've been getting or not getting, or feedback.
Feedback, absolutely.
So there's you'll have heard of something called like the feedback loop, maybe, and you know, that's really good. If you operate in that way, that's going to probably lead to, you know, being able to achieve those like marginal gains and things like that.
Yeah.
So that was improving processes and thing. I think we've still got to work on that one. That's a continuous one.
Yeah, I think we'll go through there's definitely a continuation of that and an adjustment, I will say, on that for when we just share with you what some of our new goals are for this year.
Yeah. So the second one we'd written down was refresh branding and website, which is something that you probably will be looking at yourself. I know most photographers and videographers, they like to tweak their websites, and I think it's a natural thing. Most businesses wouldn't do this because they aren't visual businesses, they're not into design and things like that. But I think photographers and videographers have naturally got this, they're not necessarily designers, and I'm certainly not a chuffing designer, but they have a tendency to like to tweak these little things and the aesthetics, and I've got some new photos or some new videos that I want to upload, so I'm going to change it. That's really good. That's a really positive thing for websites, web presence. But you know, this was like a bigger deal than just tweaking the website, wasn't it? This was like we were paying a company to build a new website for us, which is something that we hadn't ever done. So we've been in business for 5 years, and we had been using Wix, and we designed our own, you know, website and built our own website. And to be honest, it was working absolutely fine. I wouldn't say that there was any massive issue, but what we wanted to do at the time was we wanted to slightly update our branding, because we'd had the same branding for 2 or 3 years. Well, 3 years, which we liked, but we just felt like things had moved on a little bit, so we just wanted to like refresh it a little bit. So stay with the same theme, but you know, update colours, fonts, logos, things like that. And also what we were trying to do is we had 3 separate websites. So at the time we had a website for commercial, a website for weddings, and a website for our studio, which kind of incorporated wedding photography, and the wedding website started off as just videography, and then we were trying to bring them together. So we basically were trying to bring photography, videography for weddings and commercial work, but rather than just having one website, we wanted kind of this website that had 2 parts to it. Very complicated. It's something that maybe we'll talk about in the future, about whether that was a good idea or a bad idea and how that kind of went. But essentially, we had been operating these separate websites, haven't we? And we just wanted to make it simple. And going forward, we had a goal, and that goal was to do more commercial work. So we knew we needed the commercial website to be better than what it was currently. So this was a way of kind of bringing the brand to a place where we could do that.
Yeah.
And that was now looking back on it. So we made this goal back then in January 2022. Now it's 2023, January 2023, and that was a huge piece of work, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was, we'd massively underestimated the time that would need to be invested into that. I mean, so Divine Studios, who have sponsored this podcast and who did this rebranding and the website for us, good friends of ours, you know, had done a fantastic job on how this website looks. Because it was. You mentioned using Wix previously. You know, it wasn't kind of using that.
It was moving it
software,
to WordPress.
So something kind of completely different. And
we don't need to go into all the details of that.
I just think
it was just the fact that it was a huge piece of work.
Huge piece of work. Our mistake with this was thinking, because we'd sort of said to the team there, you know, we started it in January, and we were sort of like, well, you know, by Easter, before the weddings get up and running again, you know, we really want to relaunch and really kickstart the summer season and the next year, sort of introducing this. And we just completely underestimated how much time we would need to invest into the copy for the website and the imagery and the videos, and getting to grips with, you know, after once kind of the handover from the team. Basically, they give you the support and the education in how you will update the website yourself. But if you aren't doing that regularly, if you're not kind of hitting the ground running with that, and you know exactly what you want that copy to, you know, the tone, the words that are used, if you don't know exactly how you want that to look and you're not regularly updating that, you can soon, and perhaps just speaking for myself here, but you can soon fall out of touch with remembering how to do X, Y, and Z. And I think perhaps even did ourselves a bit of a disservice there but because we underestimated it, we didn't.
Well, what I'll say that the time-bound aspect of this action plan says, before wedding season gets busy, implement by April 2022. So, and then in brackets it said 3 months, because it was giving us 3 months from that point where we made the action plan to complete it. The problem is we were still working on edits that were backed up from like winter, you know, before Christmas 2021. And so we're still working on those, and the website and the rebrand, because as well, we're not just talking about building a website, we're talking about a whole branding process. So adjusting all those colours and fonts, logos, the feel, the voice of the business, and going through all that work between ourselves, me and Lyndsey, but also working with Adam and Ash. It was, you know, there was a lot to kind of come out of that and a lot to explore. But then there was also the fact that this website was going to be multifunctional. It was pulling all these functions together from these 3 different websites that we had. So there was then the practicalities of, we were actually building quite a big website there, and there were lots of pages to it that all needed words. They all needed, like Lyndsey said, they needed like visual assets, they needed copy. And that just was, looking back on it, that was really daft to think that we could do that in 3 months whilst doing everything else that you need to do. Honestly, we will talk about this, because it's such a great topic, because there's so many positives, but there's these like points that came out of it that we just did not approach it in the right way.
No.
We've learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
And we would love to share that with you, because it would be really helpful for people to hear.
Yeah. Because it shouldn't be something I would not for a second say, you know, try to dissuade you from doing this. You know, this was completely necessary for our business.
It was necessary to build things going forward, yeah.
But now, I think, gosh, poor Adam and Ash must have just been thinking, oh, these guys are crackers if they think that they can get all this sorted out in time. You know, and we're even kind of,
do you want to put it back?
Saying to us, do you want to delay this, guys?
And we were like, no, because we need to get it done before wedding season. So, yeah. So talking about that one, did we, you know, like for instance, I'll go through some stuff here. So, relevant, the bit, so it was key to the future success and growth of the business. No longer managing multiple sites with low visitor numbers, so that's not fit for purpose.
Yeah.
There was a cost perspective to it, because we were paying to host 3 different sites, and we were then having to pay other things to do, like email boxes and things to do with those sites. And then there's the time maintenance and update cost, you know, not in actual cost necessarily, but in time. So there's a lot of good reasons to do it. Did we achieve it, Linz? Like, we actually had the website up in time. It was a little bit after April. I think it was May it went live.
Half of May, yeah.
So May it went live. Unfortunately, May for us was just, April ended up really busy, and then May was just nuts. And because April had been busy, we were then like, we were full on editing and we were full on shooting in May.
And at the start of May, we had the 4-day weekend, 4-day wedding.
Where we picked up four weddings in a go, and then it was weddings pretty much every weekend, 1 or 2 every weekend then for the next few weeks, months.
Yeah, just for podcast, I'm just sat here, just continually shaking my head.
She's shaking her, yeah.
I think, what on earth were we?
So, but you know, the thing is, we didn't quite meet the time, but we did get the website up, and we have been using it, and it has been slowly evolving into what it's supposed to be. If you visited it now, is it done? Is it as it should be? Absolutely not. And I would say that you know, the next few months is going to be about trying to build that website out how it should be. You know, and in a way, I can see the positives to how we've done it. Again, I'll leave that for a different episode because we don't want to focus too much on one thing here. But yeah, I wouldn't say we fully achieved that. That's ongoing too. And
I think again, you know, it's all learning, isn't it? Because it's, gosh, I don't know. I think it's very different operating a website on something like Wix to this step up to something that really means business. And again, you know, I'm not gonna, like I say, this is not about berating us in any way, but I think it's such a really good thing to analyse and just self-assess on, and just recognise that you didn't realise that this.
Yeah.
And so if you were to do it over again, and you were to, you know, if we were to all down the line, all over again, have the need for a rebranding and a new website and things, we would have a much better understanding of exactly what time and effort and the work that is needed to go into that, to get that to a point for launch where you're really, really happy with that. You know, so that's completely on us, and we, yeah, that's a good thing for me that we have been through that kind of learning cycle, if you like.
Yeah, and it's a good learning lesson in terms of, it doesn't have to be about something specific like branding a website, but it could be that you could be wanting to make some kind of goal. You could have a goal that is realistic to achieve, but you just maybe don't fully understand all the steps between, you know, the start line and the finish line.
Yeah.
And so unless it's very clear to you because you've done it before, or you've got some kind of, that's why education, that's why listening to other people, that's why listening to the experience of others is, you know, and that could be listening to somebody who's helping you with that. It could be listening to someone like us, because if people have more experience than you do about something, then involve them in your goals, involve them in your plans, and that way you will help yourself have a better chance of achieving them.
Yeah.
So, next one, improve Instagram presence and growth. I'm laughing at this one. No, we haven't achieved that. Not in terms of what we were trying to do anyway. Basically, a line under the specific thing was that a high number of clients are required from Instagram, so it makes sense to push that. I've put 43.2%. So at the time, 43.2% of our inquiries must have been coming from Instagram. So, that's one of those, like, if something's working, you can double down on it. And that's what we were trying to make sure we did. However, if I'm being honest, and I'll tell you what the time bounded part of it was. It was throughout 2022, so review at the end of the year. So we're reviewing it now, and did we do anything in terms of improving the way that we did things on Instagram? Absolutely not. I think we've totally failed at that. Now, are we still getting loads of inquiries from Instagram? Yes. And that's more to do with just being in business quite a few years and to do with like running ads and things like that. So now it's 51.5%. Oh no, that is this year. Yeah, so for this year so far, 51.5% of the inquiries come from Instagram. So it's gone up.
And the target was, I think, for Scene to get it to 50%.
Okay, well, we achieved the target. Hopefully that laugh didn't just pierce your ears.
I think, do you know what I think? Okay, I think that you perhaps started off with that one on a bit of it was a bit defeatist, I think, the way that you started that. And do you know why I think it is? I think because, and it probably is for you as well, is a topic of hot discussion, and this might just be a discussion with yourself in your own mind. You're thinking, oh my gosh, Instagram, think about just 12 months ago, think about what you were doing in terms of your marketing assets. What were you doing to be able to showcase yourself on the Instagram platform alone? You would share your work.
Yeah,
you wouldn't.
It's changed so much.
You would share your work. You would tag the other suppliers.
Done.
Brilliant. If you could, I've never been able to get the collaborate function to work. Either inviting someone or accepting an invitation to do it. If you could do that, brilliant. Look at what it is today. Look at how much more demanding on your time, on the assets created, on the resources you need to invest into it. Look at how much more.
So it's like you've got to come up with an idea and a concept for like a reel or something,
yeah.
and then you've got to write some kind of script or notes for yourself, and then you've got to think of like making it look interesting. Whether you're doing that by filming it in a certain location in a certain situation, whether you're miming to somebody else's audio talking, or you're going to use some special filters that are on there that you've seen people using. Then you've got to pick some sort of music, and you need to look at what's trending music and all this sort of thing.
Captions on.
Then you got to put captions on, and you got to Instagram's helping you do a lot of that stuff inside the Reels application. But for me personally, when I've tried to do any of this stuff, and like I'm not gonna lie, I found it really challenging. And I'd say that this is actually still my action plan. This is still my. I hope I can do that this year. I hope we find a way to improve our Instagram this year, as well as other social media.
So yeah, the number of followers has gone up, as you've seen there. The inquiries that are generated through Instagram, that has also grown. This year, I would say that we are also turning a focus to other paid advertisement. Okay,
and doing other social media platforms.
Other social media platforms as well, because it's not that it's not the be all and end all is Instagram. And I think you if you do listen to other, well, I was going to generalize it. I wasn't just going to copy what you told me last night. But if you are listening to other things at the moment, it could be that we've hit a little bit of a point with Instagram in some respects, and it's not just in our industry, it's in others as well, where it's kind of like, I do feel a little bit like, what is Instagram even clear on what it wants you to do to be able to be seen? Is it just charging a lot for what you invest into it for your advertising? But what's its vision there? Because,
take your money. That's what its vision is.
So yeah, we need, in some respects, we need to kind of hone in a little bit on what our goals are. But for this one, for me, I think we need to we personally need to start looking a little bit broader and not just focusing on Instagram, which is what we'll do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something that will, you know, if we take the word Instagram out of it, but social media, marketing, you know, posting, all that sort of thing, that's something we need to work on again this year. And some of the points on that action plan as well were to do with creating content and having it ready, so that you're not stressing out trying to think of what to post on a daily or weekly basis, so that we've never got to that point, just because it's not something that we've ever felt like we had the time to invest in it. And that's what the real purpose of that action plan this time last year was. It was to try to say, look, you need to put some time aside to do this. It's a necessary evil. Even if you don't like doing it, even if you don't want to be doing it, it's something that you probably have to do. So you don't have to do anything in your business, but there are certain things that if you want to achieve a goal, you probably need to do X, Y, and Z to achieve that goal. And this is one of those things. So yes, we'll move on from that. The next one was further develop aesthetics of photos and films. So under that, it's to do with like colour grading. And so, okay, we've probably got two different things on this, but for me, this was like, I think lots of people doing this, and might have talked about it previously, but the thing that I think photographers and videographers can struggle with sometimes, some people have the most amazing aesthetics of their photos or their films, and they still mess with it. Even though, like, you look at their work, I've talked to people who I look at their work and go, that's beautiful, it looks amazing, right? And they're like, I just can't get it to look the way and I'm thinking, what is wrong with it, right? Now, internally, I've always done this too. So I have had, it was too cold, and it was too muted, then it was too warm, and then now I feel like I've developed this preset, this LUT that kind of makes everything a little bit too yellowy green. And I can't seem to get it how I want it. And like, it does depend on the light, and that's the problem. So I won't go into this in masses of detail because it's not for this time, but light is different on every single wedding day. So you can't develop one thing that works on everything. That's something that I've realised, it just doesn't exist. You have to have variations. Yes, you can change, you should always be tweaking the white balance and stuff, but even if depending what you've shot it in, it will just have different, it will bring out different things in terms of colour and how something looks, whether something's harsh, whether something's soft. All of this stuff is very difficult. So the problem is if it doesn't look exactly the way you want it to look, you think you've got to change everything. And this is something I still haven't worked out. And I know that lots of other photographers and filmmakers have the same struggle. That was something I was trying to look at. I was trying to get things consistent. Still haven't felt, still don't feel like things are as consistent as I want. I don't know if they ever will be, and I think that maybe social media, Instagram, things like that doesn't help you with this, simply because people are showing exactly what they want to show. As in, if people post images that all look the same, it's because they were probably all shot in the same type of light, right? So they don't show an actual wedding, or they don't show all of the weddings, they're showing just that. Now, for me, I like to show different weddings and different parts of weddings, and I like to incorporate, if I shoot an amazing wedding, I don't want to not show it, and created an amazing film or some amazing photos. I don't want to not show it because it doesn't have the colour and light characteristics of something else. So maybe that's a personal struggle.
Possibly, but I think because we have, in terms of the services that we offer, because we have made a move towards trying to offer a hybrid service, the kind of goal of consistency has been far more prevalent.
Yeah, between the two, between the photos and the video.
Yeah. Because you want to achieve them. But even, you know, just going back to the new website for a moment, and what's shared online, you know, we reached this point in the, I think it was late summer, early autumn, where we had all of this fantastic work that we'd, all these lovely, lovely weddings that we've been involved in over the spring and the summer. But when it came to sharing it online, this real thing hit you of what it looks like. And if we're trying to really elevate to showcasing the fact that we can be consistent in what we offer in film and photo, but that we have been making improvements and we have been learning, I need to feel confident in the work that we're sharing and that we're putting on the new website.
And I want it all to look the same.
I want it all to look the same, but you just weren't there. And sort of over the Christmas period, for new imagery that's gone on the website and for things that we are going to be sharing over the next few months on social, you downloaded hundreds and hundreds of films from the catalogue, back catalogue if you like, from over the years, and re-edited them so that there was consistency over these images that some of them, you know, span 5 years.
Yeah. I haven't done it as much with the films yet, but I've definitely done it with the photos.
With the photos. So re-editing them to still trying to, you know, reach that point of...
Because I'm trying to show what people can expect to receive.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not showing, you know, I want them to be like, I want them to, when they receive stuff, I want them to be confident that they knew what it was going to look like. It looks similar now to what it will look like. Anyway, that's a completely personal, I think, one, but it's an example of a goal and an action plan that you know, there isn't necessarily a end point, because it will always be developing potentially.
Yeah.
It's probably not a very good example of one.
No, but I think it's a good one to have in there, because like we said at the beginning, there's always going to be goals that are in there that will be ongoing throughout. And I don't think there'll be any of us that are doing this that are not wanting, not any of us that are in this for the long term who aren't wanting to make improvements month on month, every single year, with every single wedding. And so I think that it's the nature of what we do, that the quality of what you want to showcase to people, of course, it's always going to be there. And if it's not, then I don't think you're in the right profession. Yeah,
and you know, you could be that you are, you could have something, you could be earlier on in your photography or videography career, and you could be going to weddings and you could be thinking there are parts of the day, for instance, that you find quite difficult to shoot, that are a little bit more challenging than others, that you feel like you haven't quite nailed it yet. And if a great goal would be, you know, I want to, let's say you've struggled to capture the confetti shot or something like that, and you say, I want to capture the confetti shot better. I want to get better images from the confetti shot. And then you basically can work back from there and look through the images that you've taken and think about the processes that you do in order to capture the confetti shot and how you can tweak them. And this is all stuff that we might be doing unconsciously all the time. But if you actually make it a goal and then work out how you're going to improve that process, improve the result at the end of that process, you will be able to get there quicker.
Yeah.
So the last one that we'll talk about is revenue versus number of weddings. And this is a really good one that it actually leads into topics that we'll be talking about over the next few weeks on the podcast, and that's money. And at the end of the day, we're doing this as a business, so we're doing it to make money, to have to make a living, so that we can. This is our job. We don't have to do other work. We won't. You know, you might do this part-time, you might do this full-time, but the idea is you make money so that you can live, or buy stuff, whatever. And we had buy stuff. Technical.
Wholesome.
Yeah. When I say buy stuff, I mean like, you know, food for your family, coats for the kids. Like, I don't mean like,
Essential.
I'm going to buy a pony. Right? So, we need to make a certain amount of money, and this is one of those things we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks because it's really important. It's a topic that people don't like to talk about, they don't necessarily like to think about all the time, but it's exactly why we're doing this as a business, and we're not just doing it for fun, shits and giggles. So we had a target that we didn't want to be doing as many weddings, and we wanted to be able to earn a certain amount of money. And this, you know, we will talk about this in the future, but it's basically all about understanding figures and understanding what that means if you want to achieve something. Okay? And the reality is that I think we achieved that. So we'd put down that we wanted to make a minimum amount of £75,000, and the maximum number of weddings we wanted to do was 30 to 35. And then in brackets we've put some already paid for. So again, this is stuff we'll probably talk about in future episodes. But the reality is that this year or last year, there were still weddings that were postponements from COVID. Some of those had already been paid for in full, so we'd already received the money from them. And that basically meant we weren't really getting paid for those weddings at the time because the money had already come in. So we have basically, with that, taking those out of the equation, we actually achieved this target. And it said the time bound was August 2022, which is the end of our financial year. So our financial year runs slightly different because we set up a company, a business, rather than just being sole traders and working on the standard UK financial year of March to April, or April to March even. So it was also about going forward. So by implementing that then, it meant that it was a stepping stone to implementing even more change, even more of a goal for this financial year, and obviously for the subsequent financial years. The idea being that we want to be able to charge more per wedding, and there are different ways in which we are trying to do that, and be able to have more time to work on those weddings and do other things because we are taking on fewer weddings. So actually it's an action plan that we've managed to achieve, and we didn't necessarily know at the point where we made this action plan if we would achieve it. It was a goal. So, you know, there are sometimes you can set a goal and give yourself a pat on the back. And it also means that you are working towards even greater goals in the future. So a stepping stone goal. You might have, in relation to revenue, you might have figures in your mind that you know you want to achieve, but they are 3-5 years away in reality. But, you know, as long as everything will continue to be okay until you get there, that can be an aspiration. This one was about making sure we had enough money to pay the bills, run the business, and, you know, if we want to go on holiday, we can go on holiday, that sort of thing. Obviously, there are new goals, new aspirations, but that's just the last action plan, and it ties really nicely into what we are planning to do in the next few weeks in relation to talking about money. So, goals for this year is an interesting one, because I think a lot of the goals that we've talked about there they're going to transfer over. They're going to be goals for this year. They're just slightly adapted. But I think as part of that, we can expand by saying, especially on that like revenue versus number of weddings, we want to try and plan our work better through the year. If we showed you our calendar, our wall planner for last year and the jobs, there were just too many, you know. Some people will do 6-7 weddings a week and they're cool with that. That's never going to be for us, particularly the way we're doing it. We're not outsourcing things at the moment, we're doing them in-house, and we have to be able to do the editing, and we want to be able to have a balanced life, do other things, spend time with kids, etc. So we can't shoot that many weddings, and there was a few periods in the last year where we had like 4 in a row, 3 in a row, even 2 in a row now is kind of, there are going to be some 2 in a rows this year, but they're not, we're not happy about that, just because we know what impact that has on everything else. So trying to plan the year better, and I think that we're already moving in the right direction with that in terms of like revenue balanced against the number of weddings and how spaced out they are. I think that we're, other than August this year, we are doing better with that. So, that's our goal for this year, and we're not going to go through it as like a specific action plan. Other things is to do with time management. So again, separating our home life, work life, being able to allocate time to different things. And that has a lot to do with personal goals also. We've talked previously about our daughter's not been very well, and we need to be there for her. And as well, we know how working hard and the family life and how that's been going, how that impacts on your own well-being, your own health. And I think that me and Lyndsey have both turned 40 now, and we are really sort of realising how important it is to focus some attention and some time on your own health and well-being. So that has to be factored into all this. A year ago we would have said the same thing, but it was that'd be nice to do that. Now it's become a little higher up on the priority list. It's now a proper goal. It's a non-negotiable. We have to do that. So it's about being able to manage our time much better so that we can, do other things. So at this point, we kind of need to look at what your goals are. Have you been thinking about, you've been listening to what we've been talking about during the podcast, has it been making you think about things in your own life, in your own business? Are there things that you would like to be able to achieve, but they've just been, thoughts and ideas floating around? There's been no specific, I'm going to do this. You don't need to do smart action plans and things like that. You don't need to write loads of stuff down on bits of paper. But we find that like having a diary or a journal, not saying that these are things that we do religiously, but if you find it helpful to write things down, a journal, a daily diary, whatever, can really help you to track how you're moving towards whatever goals you've got. You can write goals down in there, and on a daily basis or a weekly basis, you can reflect on what you're doing and how things are going in relation to moving to that. You might not need to do that. You might not be the sort of person that needs to do that. But if it helps you to visualize things, just like we have our wall planners up on the wall here in the office, and even though they don't really do anything because I look at the CRM for all of the information and everything, it's just really good to be able to just glance up and see all the little dots where they are, because it visually says, right, there are gaps, or it's cool, we've got plenty of work there, or we haven't got enough work there. And it just helps you to, when that inquiry comes in, you can have a quick glance. I don't know, I just find it it doesn't, like I say, we use the CRM, so it doesn't really serve a purpose as such.
I feel like for me it does, and I like to have it there. And I think because this year, for me, to be able to achieve breadth of work, rather than it's all about that peak season and the knock-on effect that peak season has into other times in the year, if we could achieve a more even split of work, it's very difficult because we all know that there is the peak season. it might span a slightly wider period of time now. It's not just July, August, for instance. We might kind of class it as May to September, but still there is an impact of that on the rest of the year for you, because there's so much work often crammed into that period of time. So the ideal for me is to look at that wall planner and see a more evenly spread number of dots, if you like, across the months.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to do that, and just that's a natural, that's a visual motivator for me. So
Good way of putting it.
whether it's the journaling, there's also the side of it about accountability.
Accountability?
Yes.
Is that different to accountability?
Oh, it's very similar to accountability. I got away with that. Yeah, it's that for me, for writing things down, for doing the wall planner, that is me actively holding myself accountable too. So
I get that.
Even there are slight differences in what might be natural motivators or ways in which we hold ourselves responsible for things. But so that just goes to show you what works for one might not necessarily work for the other, but that's okay. That's where a little bit of self-discovery is.
So, you could use other things like we've recently downloaded an app called Habit on our phones because we wanted to, outside of work, we wanted to keep ourselves accountable to doing certain things every day, whether it's drinking a certain amount of water, eating fruit, going to the gym, doing certain sorts of exercise or whatever. But whilst I know that once I'm in a routine, I probably don't need that, some people do need that accountability all the time. And I know I need that accountability to start the routines, to start the habits. Hence why, that's why it's probably called Habit. It's a really good name for an app. But it's like, I know to formulate that habit, and I guess that's what the whole point of the app is to keep you accountable until it becomes second nature, until it becomes something you just do. And so just like that's something we're doing with, outside of work, inside work, you have to set a goal of getting better at something to be able to get better at something. You have to set a goal of improving a process. So if I know I want to be faster at editing, so I need to get my wedding film edits down to a certain number of hours, or my photograph editing down to a certain number of hours, because I know that there's a trade for that. I get time back. I make more money off the time investment. So if that's a goal for you, really the only way you're going to get there, you could get there by just seeing what happens and seeing if you get quicker, or you could actually set yourself a goal and then say, what do I need to do step by step to be faster at that? And it's probably going to mean that you think a lot harder about the things that you can save time on, the things that you're wasting time at, the things that you could find a different solution to, which would make it quicker. That's what goal setting, action plans, all this stuff is really all about. It's about, what do I want to do? How do I get there? And actually looking and thinking about it, rather than just by chance, I made more money this year, or I, managed to get my edit times down by a day or a few hours. No. Like, it won't probably happen. It will happen over years. You will make more money over the next few years. You will get faster at editing over the next few years. But if you really want to make some moves and make that happen in a shorter frame of time, this is literally going to be the way you can do it. So what are your goals? What are your goals? What are you thinking about? Have you been listening to us thinking, I could, or thinking, why are these clowns talking about this? This is not a real goal. This is a real goal. I want to be a zillionaire. Who knows, right? But whatever your goals are, it has to be something that you're trying to achieve that's important to you. That's what it's all about. And we hope that this has given you some ideas. We hope it's been helpful to listen to us, being honest and open about what our goals were, have we achieved them or not, and hopefully it sparks some inspiration for this current year for you, or gives you that kick up the backside that you needed to set your own goals? You've been thinking about stuff for ages, but have you been doing something about it? We'd love to hear what your goals are. You know, whatever things you're working on, whatever things you wanted to achieve this year, 2023, please drop us a DM on Instagram and let us know, at Wedding Mavericks. Thank you again for listening. It's been great talking to you. Take care of yourselves, have a great week, and we'll speak to you next time.
Bye guys.
See you later.